Good evening. How are you all doing today? Welcome to the product launch of SecuFusion. I and Raghu are deeply in gratitude to all of you for coming in person to attend the product launch event for SecuFusion. We are excited to share with you all the vision for SecuFusion, but you will have to wait for 30 minutes. Prior to it, we are going to have an exciting discussion, Think Red, Act Blue, where we are going to have a panel of eminent cybersecurity leaders who are going to share with us some very profound insights on the emerging threats, on the ways to tackle these threats. So without much ado, I'm going to hand over the stage to the moderator of this initial discussion, Ramya Ganesh, who will also be introducing the speakers. And after this discussion, we will have the big reveal, wherein we are going to introduce SecuFusion through a fireside chat. So I and Raghu are again super excited to welcome you all. And without much ado, let me hand over the floor to Ramya Ganesh. Thank you, Ramya.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. So before we begin, I would like to thank Dallas Venture Capital for bringing us all together and hosting this event. And we're also excited that later today they will be introducing one of their portfolio companies, SecuFusion. So such a big day for them. So congratulations to the whole team. I see quite a few some familiar faces here, but for those who might not know me, I'm Ramya, and I have been working with Cisco for the past 10 years on the security side of things. I lead the team that works on extended threat detection and response and automation. Very excited to moderate this exciting panel today, and for the next 30 minutes, we will discuss a few topics that is on everyone's mind. Over the past couple years, one of the biggest shifts we have seen in cybersecurity is the rapid acceleration of AI tools, not just on the defender side, but it's increasingly being used in the attacker side as well. And attack techniques have becoming faster, they are more adaptive, and in most cases, the automation that has been used, we have never seen this anywhere before. So at the same time, defenders are also using AI to detect threats proactively and also respond to it much faster. So the real question today is, are defenders actually keeping up? And are attackers having an advantage that most organizations are underestimating? So that's what we are going to explore today in the discussion. And to make this conversation engaging, we have structured the panel into two teams. Red team and the blue team. I know we are talking about red and blue here, so but don't worry, it's not going to go very intense. And even if it's going to go intense, we'll make sure that none of them have admin rights to the microphone. So yeah, so we're just going to get some perspectives from the attacker side and some perspective on the defender side. So let me start by introducing our incredible panelists here. First, representing the red team, we have Gregory, who is the best-selling author and a speaker on AI and cybersecurity, and currently serves as VP or CISO advisory at BlackBerry. We also have Douglas McKay. Doug is a SANS author and instructor, and currently the director of vulnerability intelligence at Rapid7. Now representing the blue team, we have Arasu Dhanasekar. Arasu is the CISO for Schneider Electric. And joining him is Ismail. And Ismail is a SANS author and instructor and currently serves as a VP of Threat Intelligence at Arctic Wolf. Thank you all for being here today. So let's dive right into our first topic. So when we explore how AI is changing the threat landscape, particularly we're talking about the browser environment. So as most of us are living in the browser today, be it ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, which means attackers are increasingly using it, and they are targeting it. So let's start with the red team's perspective. Douglas, what does an AI-assisted browser attack look like in 2026? That has never been before in 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think from an attacker standpoint, what we're really seeing is the engagement of what we would call the trusted middle layer. So attackers are always looking for the easiest way to get into something. I say all the time, attackers are lazy, I know, because I am one, right? And what the browser has done is it's no longer just this window into the World Wide Web. You know, that's the way we often think of it, or the way it was originally designed. It was just a device that, or an application, not a device necessarily, that showed text to somebody, right? Now we have this layer of extensions. We have JavaScript that executes in that layer. With these extensions have the privileges of the user that's running that browser, right? So what's the biggest threat in the browser as it comes to AI? It's that the AI and attackers have access to that layer that we've provided them that already has the permissions to act like a user. So we used to, 15, 20 years ago, the biggest thing running around when it came to browsers was like use after free attacks, right? Memory corruption. And so we threw in sandboxes. We threw in those type of protections to prevent those type of attacks from happening. But now what we're saying is the attacker can get in at the browser level with the same permissions as the end user, and therefore when they perform those activities, it looks like the end user is doing what they're supposed to be doing. So really, the way the threat landscape has changed here is we need to stop thinking about browsers as just this window in order to view things, but they are effectively a new threat environment, or I won't say new, but there's an additional attack surface there that they can play with, and they're happy to do so, because if they can pretend to be someone that they're not and execute those things, that's way easier than going after memory corruption or going after the other type of attacks.
That's a very interesting take. So what do you think about that from the Red Team perspective?
From the Red Team perspective, I'll take it even a tier further. The browser is your window into the world of AI, with the rare exception of some, AI tools that you may be speaking to it via a chat app or something along those lines. You're probably accessing your Anthropic, your Gemini, your ChatGPT, or go down the line via the browser. So again, as an attacker, thinking from a red perspective, and I have probably about 35 years in the cyber industry, so I've spent a long amount of time conditioning my head to think from the ontology of the attacker perspective. Thinking as an attacker, I'm even less concerned. What Doug said is 100% valid, but I'm even less concerned about that. I'm concerned about what about the user, because that's where the weak spot really is. It's not even the software, it's that user. That user is going to, out of convenience, cut and paste your entire company client directory into ChatGPT because it wants it to, hey, ChatGPT, write me up a mail merge sequence to, send something out to my customers. I'm doing customer outreach, or I'm doing a marketing campaign or something along. That's really the scary part. If I can convince the user that the valuable utility of that AI tool that's being pitched to them everywhere they turn right now, you're going to have to do it in your browser, even if there is no vulnerability. I'm going to get that user to do something that is vulnerable from a behavioral perspective. Right. So it's very risky.
Let me add something to that really quick, right? In the era of Electron apps, how we define a browser is completely different than it used to be. So you just mentioned the ChatGPT, Perplexity, Anthropic program that we install. That's not a different application. That is a browser, right? We're running that as an isolated browser instance. So therefore that attack surface exists in those AI applications as well.
Yep. So very, very interesting take there. So how about the blue team? How are you going to tackle that question? Ismail, how about you? Yep.
Same question?
Yeah, same question.
Well, we have some advantage here because, as Sri mentioned, I kind of I guess I created the think red, blue kind of term. And the whole philosophy that maybe we haven't explained is think as an attacker, or see the world as attackers see it, to become a better defender. And I get to know these gentlemen well because I've worked with both of them for some time. So I guess we have some advantage here on the blue side. Yeah, no, totally agree. The browser has a lot of value from an attacker's perspective, and we see this on the day-to-day threats. For the last few years, we have seen a lot of what we call info stealers. An info stealer is just a malware that is just created to steal your credentials, to steal information out of your machine, right? And I think we have been doing a very good job in the industry at having strong endpoint security solutions that are really good at detecting malware at different steps across the attack chain. But attackers know that the browser is kind of like a blind spot. And we see a lot of info stealers these days that are just like hooking into the memory space for the browser, like trying to hook into this window, right? That gives you access to not just credentials, but also confidential information, sensitive data. Everything goes through this browser or through the applications that are based on Chromium and the technologies that we use for browsers. So attackers know this, and there's no question they've been putting a lot of effort into tapping into these areas for the last few years, and we see this on a regular basis. Just to mention one example, ClickFix. Have you ever seen this pop-up coming up on a website and saying, oh, your computer is infected with something. This is what you need to do right now. Copy this, right? Paste it into your... and a lot of that is just JavaScript, right? It's just scripting within the context of your browser, and you need to have that additional sensor or that additional camera that is, that control that is looking at that particular thread. Like ClickFix is so prevalent these days, and it's been for the last few months. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen a lot of this. And that lives within the browser space.
Yep. So browser has always been a blind spot for sure. What's your take, Arsu?
So, thanks. I think let me take a step back. How the browser evolved as an intelligence layer, right? Especially when AI coming in. So we started browser as a more of a thick. Most of the application run as a thick client in the computer. Then slowly, when the cloud computing came, everything in the thick client moved into web interface, right? That means the risk shifted. Now this is the new age where intelligence also shifting into the browser. So I look as from defender point of view, how to use modern methods, right? Because we cannot use the same techniques as thick client and thin client model, right? Now we have to cover the intelligence layer also. So as our colleague said here, the browser is where attackers can easily grab the user, because the users are not as intelligent as the technologists who develop the tools. Just as if you look at all the hacks happened and ransomware happened, it's all because of just a click of a mouse on the browser window or a pop-up window, right? So from defender point of view, I think we need to pay attention on the intelligence layer. That's the land shift change happening, and make sure we bring all the tools and technologies associated with this new modern age to adapt to that technologies, right? That's why we need to focus on that layer and bring, as a professionals, think red and think blue, but come up with a common solution where we can all fight together the attackers in more intelligent manner rather than going back to the old. But basics remain same.
Right.
So that will be my take on it.
Okay, yeah. So browser remains a blind spot. So I think we definitely need solution to secure that. So we have talked about how attackers may use AI, but there's also another challenge that organizations are seeing, and that's happening more internally in the form of shadow AI. So Arasu, back to you. Like in terms of governance, what do you think? Like where we are, how organizations are dealing with shadow AI?
So it comes with basic philosophy, right? What you don't know, you can't protect what you don't know, right? So the first step is visibility. First, take an inventory of what your users are using, right? Especially large corporations, we have very good tools and techniques to protect what user can access. But at the same time, the changes are very rapid. So we need to make sure the visibility is a key and get an inventory of what are all the tools and technologies, especially AI, agentic AI, and these are all market is still at very early stages. The technologies are not paying that much attention on putting security controls now, right? That means there are going to be a lot of blind spots. So first get the inventory So in security world, as you know, like allow only known connections, right? Deny all and allow only known connections. That's the mantra we follow in security world. But how are we going to do in this modern age? If you deny all and allow only, how many are going to take an inventory, right? So we need to come up with more modern ways to what can be allowed, what can be denied, and how can we protect this very quickly. So that will be my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll come to this visibility part later, what you cannot see, you cannot protect. Ismail, so we have this OpenClaw, which is very prominent these days. So what do you think the AI-aware browser should handle shadow agents like these, like the OpenClaws?
Yeah, and we're going to have more of those coming up, right? I'm a big proponent of the zero trust philosophy. You know, we've been talking about that with some of you before. And I said philosophy because that's what it is, right? It's a strategy, it's a philosophy. And the idea is that, you know, you have to focus on not what you want to block, but what do you want to allow, right? And you need to know your business, you need to know your workflows, you need to know how the data should move, and then focus on not trying to block things, because otherwise you're going to be playing whack-a-mole all day long. And today it's OpenClaw, tomorrow there will be something else. You need to really understand, you know, where your high-value assets are, how does the data move, and I'm not saying that's easy, right? But then creating an environment that allows those things and then blocks everything else. And specifically when it comes to agentic AI, and this is something that we talk about in the Monday brief, right, which is a newsletter that Doug and I, we started recently, and we were talking about some of the incidents we have seen in the industry. And one of the root causes of that, in my opinion, is that people is not treating those as personas, as identities, right? That people are using those as tools. They're thinking about agentic AI, OpenClaw, all of these things as a tool. It's not a tool. You have to model it, threat model it as a persona. It's an identity that, you know, you're giving all your APIs, you're giving access, you know, to all of your usernames and passwords, and, you know, go to my calendar, do this, go to my server, do that. It's like, do you trust that? I don't, right? Or you shouldn't. So treat it as an identity. I think that's the key thing here, and making sure that there is authentication, that there is like guardrails, that there is visibility, that there is monitoring in the same way that you would do to any high privileged identity in your environment.
Yep. So a lot of these shadow AIs are being used to increase productivity, but there is a lot of oversight when it comes to security. So what's your take on that from the red team side?
I have so many takes. No disrespect to anyone on the blue side at all, but there's an old, ancient Near Eastern, Mesopotamian proverb that says there's nothing new under the sun. And in cybersecurity, we've literally had this discussion multiple times. I remember, and I'm going to date myself right now, I remember when the internet became a thing. There were whole entire companies out there, many of the founders are in the room right now, that their whole job was fingerprinting what category each site falls into so that we can identify this is bad, this is good, we should block it. Remember those days? Remember? None of those companies exist anymore. We gave up on that disastrous thing. Fast forward. I'm too old. Not too long ago, the cloud came out. And a bunch of companies spun up that were going to try to fingerprint which cloud services are the ones which SaaS offerings are the ones that we're going to allow. Which ones are good, which ones are bad. We have to figure it out so that we can tell our customers we should block it. And neither of those approaches fundamentally improved security. As a security practitioner who's been both a pen tester on the red side and fundamentally a blue teamer defensive on the defense side, worked for every one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world, literally. We've never solved that problem. So what are we doing now in the AI age? We need to figure out how to fingerprint which of these AIs is the right. No, that's the wrong problem completely. We've missed the boat if we think that's going to solve it. So we mentioned earlier, it becomes a decision that we have to solve at the intelligence layer. That's why something that works at that browser layer to determine and identify not based on a fingerprint, but based off of something probably more nebulous, like a behavior, this type of behavior, whether it's being done by the actual human out of good intent, which is where most of the big vulnerabilities and the big breaches that happen, it usually is not an attacker doing something ill, it's a user that inadvertently clicked on something that they didn't realize was bad. That's the behavior that we need to try to identify and target. And I'm very fearful that if tools like, and I don't work for SecuFusion or anything, if tools like SecuFusion don't come into the forefront with that intelligence layer that's helping the user make better decisions and warning them when they inadvertently make a poor decision, we're going to be having this discussion again 5 years from now when we have water-based threats or some crazy thing that doesn't exist today. You're going to hear a bunch of people come up, and we got to try to figure out which ones of these water-based services, that doesn't exist, don't go and Google that. Which one of these water-based services is good and which one is bad so we can block them? No, we can't block them. Because as the moderator said, these tools are productivity tools. So you can't build a culture of be more productive, and then when a tool comes along like an OpenClaw that fundamentally drives your productivity through the roof, no, but don't use that productivity tool. The culture, it's a disconnect. So we're going to have users doing shadow AI, shadow IT, shadow cloud, as long as light and shadows exist. We need to figure out a way to mitigate around the shadow notion of it. My belief as a former CISO is I open up the doors. Use everything. I'm a sanction everything in the environment, and then I'm going to collect that data and try to figure out where the weak behavior is that I need to correct. I have thoughts on OpenClaw as well, but that's a discussion for another time.
As long as light and, yeah, that exists. As long as light and water exist. So that's a good one, Shadow. I will actually go to the blue team. So because, you were talking about the visibility part, right? So what are a couple of things like enterprises are most dangerously blind to when it comes to, environments based on zero trust architecture?
So just for non-technical user, right? This zero trust architecture means like several layers, right? Don't trust anything, just from English language, right? So, but you need to put defense in depth, right? That's from human identity, machine identity, and the network identity, cloud identity, right? That keeps bringing on multiple layers. So what we have to do from the visibility point of view is to, like our friend said, even the agents or AI agents need to be created with an identity or like behavior-based approach. Even still, you have to, if I look up from the behavior collectively become an identity, right? Rogue behavior. Maybe that rogue behavior will have a multiple use cases. So we should articulate that into these layers, and then visibility is just a first step. Obviously, we cannot keep finding things. It's like needle in the haystack situation. So we need to categorize at least from the risk point of view. One of the things from the defender point of view is take a risk-based approach, because we cannot do everything at any point in time. Take a risk-based approach, identify these layers, and identify and map whatever you saw, and see what are the productivity, the business needs. One of the things which we need to be very careful is, not only we are talking mostly about end users, right, which we call security by operation. That means already in the field. But we need to think about secure by design also, right? Whenever people develop these applications, we need to make sure those communities being well educated what they should develop in a secure way. So visibility is only a starting point. Do the risk ranking, look at all the layers, then take it all the layers of operations, all the layers of secure design, and bring this as a cultural change to the company. Otherwise, you cannot beat this. This will keep hurting us, everybody.
Yeah. So it should start from the design phase, and all the teams need to be involved. Right. Ismail, what's your take on that? Quick take.
I'm going to give you another phrase because I'm jealous of Greg. Actually, it's not mine, but some people may remember this from Donald Rumsfeld, right? He said something like, there's the things you know that you don't know, and the things that you don't know that you don't know. and that is actually the thing that matters the most in cybersecurity. How do you know the things that you don't know? And the answer is visibility, right? It's dropping sensors, it's dropping security cameras in the same way that we do in the physical world. So to follow your thought, and it's like, it's completely right. Like if you didn't know that you have already people using OpenClaw today, now you know it. People is using it, right? People is using everything, all these tools, because there's no way that we can, block absolutely everything. And if people find their way to install something, to use it, they're going to be using it. So that's the first thing that you got to know, that everybody's using it already by now. And how do you know the things that you don't know? Well, for the majority of our businesses, especially commercial businesses, I think the security model is somewhere closer to like a supermarket or a retail business, where you cannot just be on the front door and say, oh, you look suspicious. You know what? You're not gonna walk in, right? Isn't it like that? Like you have to let some people walk in, and then what do? You have a lot of security cameras, and you're monitoring, you're watching. It's like, what is that guy like doing? Let me just get closer and see how suspicious that is. Like people think that zero trust is just about blocking and just allowing only the things that are good. And in some cases you can do that. But those workflows and those processes, they must be like very, very nailed down, and you can do that in some environments. But in many commercial environments, you cannot do that. And then you have to trust things a little bit, right? And see what they look like over time, and gather the data, gather more information, more context, enrich, correlate, and then put analytics on top of that. And then it's like, yeah, that's bad. Let me take that out of before something worse happens, right? So that's the type of visibility that we need, those security cameras, to be able to find that level of suspiciousness.
Yeah, I think the blue team nailed it. What do you think, Greg?
We're winning. We're definitely winning.
From a visibility point of view.
Sure,
yeah.
I'll just throw a hand grenade then in for your visibility, right? So let's think about this for a second, and this goes back to your identity comment earlier, right? We have to be treating AI as its own identity, and I 100% agree with that from a blue team perspective. But what I think we need to think about is we're not actually doing that today. And so as a result of that, what happens is when we use these technologies like OpenClaw, like OpenAI, all that fun stuff, we provide them the credentials of the user, right? And we say, you are the user. Go do this activity. So then we come in and we say, oh, well, the way we're going to fix this is we're going to do behavior monitoring, right? But the problem is the AI looks and acts like the user, right? In fact, we tell it to look and act just like the user. So the challenge out there for the blue team is if I'm the hacker, and I'm sitting there trying to get some type of access or trying to do something, all I have to do is use the tokens already in your browser through an extension that you already have in the browser, which already has the access to read the web page, to execute JavaScript. And all I've got to do is do it in a manner that looks like a user, which is what AI is designed to do, right? So you can have all the visibility you want in the world, but if the logs that you're reading and the reports that you're reading, the data that your telemetry that you're mining from that layer doesn't show you that there's a difference from the user behavior to an AI behavior, you're back at square one. Right? And so I think that's where we're at, and that's why your statement about creating an identity for the AI is so important. Because if we can't differentiate between what AI is doing and what a human is doing, then there is no different. You can no longer use behavior analysis, right? And so I'll make Ishmael chuckle a little bit here, but we've spent a lot of time, Ishmael and I, working on concepts behind product security testing, right, when it comes to things like that. And so what we talk about in product security testing is you have to understand how your application works at a deep technical level to be able to even have the thought of knowing what you don't know. And that is the absolute problem that we have from let me rephrase. That's what attackers are taking advantage of. Because I guarantee you, I've got asked before when we talk about product security testing, like, why is fuzzing part of product security testing? That seems like a lot of effort to go through. Well, it's part of product security testing because that's what the bad guys are doing. And if they're going to do it, then it's worth our time doing it. And if we don't do it, then all we are is one step behind from a defensive perspective. So we have to close the gap. When I say us, I guess I'm supposed to be on the red side. But the blue team has to close the gap on what they don't know that an application is doing and be able to differentiate from the identity of an automation versus AI, which, by the way, don't get me started on that. Automation and AI are not the same thing. They do act very differently, and we can detect the difference. But we have to be able to differentiate those two things and know enough about the technologies that we're using that we have that information to do so. So I think that's the call to action in a lot of places, which is we have to be treating AI as an identity. And you can have all the logs you want in the world, but if I look like the human behavior, it's not going to make a difference.
So lots of powerful insights there. And if we talk about pen testing, security testing, I think we need 30 more minutes to talk about it. So we are right on time. So what we're going to do is a quick rapid fire round. We're just going to have 30 seconds from each of the panelists. Just some golden nuggets that if you can say, like, what is that one thing the other side is dangerously getting wrong? Quick 30 seconds from each of you. I'll start with Greg. Yes.
One thing, the difficulty here is 30 seconds.
Yes.
One thing that, I'm gonna say one thing that the defense side is getting wrong, they misunderstand the entire paradigm of where the threats are coming from. I'll give you a very simple in-room example. OpenClaw, it's agentic. It's not a browser problem at all. OpenClaw doesn't work with the browser at all. It works with a chat tool that you're chatting with to some server somewhere else. There's no browser in the loop at all. So if we're trying to block that with a browser, we fundamentally missed already. And this is where the disconnect often is. We are not even on the same playing field where the attackers are.
Just to keep the red together, I'll go first for my 30 seconds. I'll take a slightly different approach just to be different. I would say the one thing that the blue team is getting wrong is we're treating the browser like an endpoint, and therefore we're trying to defend it like an endpoint. The browser is not an endpoint, and therefore it's going to need a different approach, a different methodology, and different technology to defend than what we traditionally use from an endpoint perspective.
Okay, blue team, Ismail.
Right. I got it. It's true that AI is speeding up cyber attacks and helping the red team to speed things up. But when it comes to cyber defense, speed is not what the only factor that determines who wins. If you know your environment well, the defender plays the home advantage. You have to come to my turf and play in my home field. If I know my home field well, and that's the key, I can guarantee you're going to do something that is abnormal, and I will be able to detect and to block that activity, right? Especially when you go fast. When you go fast, you may do things that you typically don't do in your environment. So that's still key to this fight.
Arsu.
Yeah. One thing I'll bring the business perspective from the attack's point of view. I think attackers team mostly they think money is unlimited. They can throw all the problem and business has to take it. So one thing I will say from defender's perspective is providing the business context, especially like Ismail said, right? We know our home field well. We know what the assets are, crown jewels are, right? So if we can get the attackers focusing on that approach instead of calling fire everywhere, right? Just if we get focus on top business priorities, that will be very good help for the community as a business community.
Yep. Excellent insights there. Thank you so much. It was an amazing panel, and that's a wrap. So a big thank you to all the amazing panelists and to all of you here who have been listening to us for the last 30 minutes. I'll just hand over to Shri, who will be doing a fireside chat. Where is he? Oh, Shri, there you are.
Wow, that's a fantastic panel. In a long time, I've heard this very passionate, very refreshing, insightful discussion. Now, the best part for today is reveal of Secufusion. And as an entrepreneur myself, I always enjoy spending time with the founders, and it's not an easy, but it's the most exciting job. And in every entrepreneur journey, what always surprises me or what's super insightful is what inspires you to take that big leap, beating all your comfortable, high-paying job, but you want to tackle a big thing. So let's first learn from Raghu. What inspired you to start Secufusion?
Yeah, thanks, Srini, for the kind words. So myself and Sriram, right, we have been in this. It's kind of an interesting startup journey that we have been in. When we we joined a startup, then we got acquired by another startup. So we keep going through these cycles for almost 20 years. So every time we get to a certain level, some other company comes and acquires us, and then we become like almost like a startup again and start doing through that, right? So it's actually, so we have been through this startup experience as employees of companies, right? So we've gone through it for almost 20 years, right? So it's always been I don't know if it's a dream or it's like a passion or whatever, that, oh, we got to start something on our own and do the same thing, right? And as part of this journey, all our focus has been mostly on the data security, access to data, and enterprise. That's what our focus has been. And when we were starting to develop initially, like back in the day, like we were way ahead of the time at the time, I guess, but we were starting to send secure email delivery to these mobile devices. That's how we started 20 years ago. One of the founder of the company is right here, actually, the hacker. So when we started like that, the focus was mostly to get how you can get the data to the end user securely, and especially once these mobile phones and all started coming, you can't lock down a device and give it to an employee and expect them to access everything on that. So that's when we started to figure out, okay, how do you make a container? How do you deliver this encrypted data to these endpoints and all that stuff? And in those days, this bandwidth was very slow. So when they click on a link or something to get an access to intranet website, it would be very slow, and sometimes they have to establish a VPN on a mobile phone or something that takes forever. And that's when we thought, okay, out of convenience, we thought, okay, why don't we just implement our own browser and just let the employees, and we can use a lighter connectivity and have a lightweight process. That way, it's much easier for them. It was just like a simple chat between me and Sriram, like, I don't know, one evening, and then we said, why don't we just write some browser? And we thought it's pretty easy, but then realized it's a much more difficult task to do that. But we did that about almost 10, 12 years ago, and just to kind of meet some customer requirements. And it exploded in usage, like a lot of defense customers, a lot of the financial organizations, most of the big banks in the US, everybody started using that, right? It was like a lot of convenience for them, and it gives them confidence that it is actually secure, right? Of course, this was a different world out there. Like all the threats that the panel discussed didn't exist at the time, right? As to the sophistication, and we have been dealing with this browser for the last 2 decades, and we have seen the evolving threats that were coming out that were mostly focused on the browser side of it, and in the last 7 years ago, actually, about 7 years ago, when we were working for BlackBerry. We also acquired this company called Cylance. That was an endpoint security company. That was like a newer generation company that employs AI models to detect malicious activity and malware and things like that, right? So that was a completely different experience for us to see like how you can detect different bad experiences, bad applications using behavioral analysis and all that stuff. And we were writing all these AI models with billion parameters before ChatGPT existed or even OpenAI existed, actually. So of course, now if you look back, it feels like we were writing code in assembly versus like what it is. Right? It's much easier to do all those things now. But between those two experiences, what we have seen through the evolution is that number one, even though browser is the most commonly used application in any enterprise, there isn't a lot of focus or attention given to that from a security angle. And they, most of the security thinks that, well, by enforcing certain network controls and firewall controls and all that stuff is more than enough, and they can detect all the websites that they're going to, and they can block them and all that stuff. And endpoint security is a lot more focused on how the ransomware gets deployed or any application deploys on the desktops and things like that, but not much focus given into extensions or JavaScript-based vulnerabilities and things like that. So we thought that there is a big space that's a blind spot for most of the existing enterprise security companies that we should solve. That's number one. And number two was, as through this AI evolution, we felt that this whole AI wave is coming. That's going to increase the security threat for the companies. And we also felt that, initially when we started, right, it's mostly ChatGPT or Claude, just providing some websites where you can ask questions and get answers. But we have kind of anticipated that, just like the distributed computing, right? The AI models and the execution will start to diverge into some things happening at the endpoints and certain things happening in the cloud, right? So we saw that when that's going to happen, how we were going to protect them, right? So just the typical traditional security is not going to be able to protect it. And we thought that, okay, we will take that advantage of it and we'll try to close the blind spot first on the browser, because browser is the first access tool for AI as well as non-AI applications when we started. And then we wanted to kind of start to spread into our footprint into detecting all these applications that are running on the desktop side, right? So most of them are, as I think the panel was also mentioning, they don't look like browsers, but many of them are Electron applications, which are again, browser-based applications. People don't realize them, like Visual Code or ChatGPT application or Slack. All of them are literally browsers behind the scenes. So we thought that we can actually spread ourselves and provide a lot of security, visibility, and especially in the current sector where like bunch of extensions, right? They're all claiming to be AI extensions. There are like hundreds of them that steal data. Excuse me. And also open cloud kind of a things, right? So where we can, it is not impossible to protect against them, but we just have to go in a proper surgical way. We can't block everything, right? So that's the whole initiation for us, and that's how we came into that. Okay, let's start to come up with this company, and I think we are very excited where we are and how we are going to protect them.
So, Sriram, your story, did Raghu sell you hard, or is that your own inspiration?
Well, I will have to say that my inspiration is Raghu. Okay, I'll tell you why. Okay, so Raghu is known for building products that are simple to use, secure, stable at scale, and he also builds with Sriram. 5S. Okay, now it is like SecuFusion, that is the 6th S. And even more exciting is the fact that Srini is the one who is introducing SecuFusion one more S, and we are hosting this event in South Lake. Okay, so it's like too many S's, isn't it? So jokes apart, so I and Raghu have been partners in crime. I on the product and GTM side, and Raghu on the engineering side. And together, like, believe us, we would have built like 40 discrete products. So it has always been a pleasure, like working with Raghu and his engineering teams and rolling out some category-defining products. Okay, the MDM category was almost like, I would say, invented by us. The bring your own device category was invented by us. I know that you may not like some of the UX experiences. We delivered on the Apple phones, but we were the first ones to actually secure the coveted FIPS certification on the Apple iOS operating system. And even today, you will see like in the FIPS like documentation, my name and Raghu's name will be there. So we have a legacy of producing some category-defining, high-security products that have been in use by the regulated verticals, by the financial services, health tech, several like G20 government organizations. And even today, like our products are being used by several like large like financial institutions. So in the process, I just like want to like give it a different perspective to what has been the inspiration for me with SecuFusion and our category-defining vision of delivering unified AI DR is the fact that all along in the last like nearly 20 years, every time there was a technology wave, we were always like coming up with products and solutions that will help enterprises embrace that particular like technology wave like confidently. So coming to browser, I think Arasu and other panelists like very neatly like touched upon wherein like browser was like very slowly and steadily becoming the go-to workspace. If you look at the evolution of like browser, okay, I look at it like in a very simplistic manner. It just started as a window on a screen, one another app, like one another tool, but slowly like enterprise work started happening inside the browser, okay? It started with the SaaS apps, then you had the cloud consoles, then you had the collaboration apps running inside the browser, and now you have AI co-pilots and agents sitting next to every user, generating content, okay? Touching upon like some sensitive data and making some very strong decisions on behalf of the enterprises, okay? So with all these activities that are happening, we thought, okay, as we were like conceiving the vision for SecuFusion, security was not following, okay? You had the shadow IT challenges, the shadow network challenges, the shadow cloud challenges, And now you have the shadow agentic challenges. And we believe that SecuFusion is very uniquely positioned to solve this problem. Considering the fact, the way we have evolved like SecuFusion, we have combined browser detection and response and AI detection and response, and we call it as like unified AI DR, which we believe is going to help enterprises. I would say like, we call like several S's, isn't it? I want to call it a few C's, okay? SecuFusion is going to help enterprises pursue agentic transformation with clarity, with control, with compliance, with confidence, and then with continuity. Continuity to move forward with their agentic AI projects, because all these like C's, if you don't have it, they have becoming like stumbling blocks for enterprises to adopt like agentic AI at scale. So I think like with the unified AI DR vision that we are presenting today through SecuFusion, we bring that visibility and control for enterprises to very boldly pursue agentic AI transformation projects. So super excited to be in this journey with Raghu, and look forward to talking more about SecuFusion.
And let me add few my own insights. You know, I moved from the Bay Area. I was in the cyber for about 20 plus years, been a part of building several successful companies. Me moving to Dallas, meeting Raghu and Sriram about 2 years ago, it's been such a breath of fresh air. And in fact, they lit up fire under me to go, let's actually go do something. And we spend a lot of weekends and we meet in some libraries and so on and so forth to see their passion and to actually see this emerging, the threat, the biggest threat vector, which is the AI, which is also the productivity vector. But largely we don't know what we don't know. Their passion and commitments to actually be the intelligent security layer, which is very, we need more people like Raghu and Sriram, and I hope this is just the beginning to inspire all of us.
Can I add a small thing?
Yeah, please.
Srini, and this is something that you are very passionate about. It is also important, one more like key driver for us is if you look at our unified AI DR vision, it actually like plays in like 3 important markets, okay? It plays like in the zero trust endpoint market, it plays like itself into the AI governance market. It plays like into the SASE market. So if you look at the combined TAM of this market is like $60 to $75 billion, okay? And the SAM is like close to like $10 to $12 billion. And we are going after a SOM, I would say, of like $500 million to $1 billion. So it's a huge like
It's actually much bigger than that, and I'll tell you why. See, as we discussed at the red team versus a blue team, while the intelligence layer is now very largely concentrated in the browser, but intelligence is gradually spreading all around. It's moving more closer to the edge, like with Apple Intelligence. And it's moving more closer to more proprietary in-house models with sovereign AI. So what's beyond the browser? Why only browser? So with the tools like OpenClaw and Apple Intelligence and more sovereign AI models and so on and so forth. So you want to reveal about what's your journey ahead, with the browser as the first thing. Where are you headed next?
Yeah, that's a great question, Srini. So yeah, we started with the browser, and in fact, but we have always seen that this AI wave is coming, right? And when we have seen a lot of companies actually start to invest in AI governance and AI guardrails and things like that. But when I saw them, most of them were actually focusing on cloud. How do you kind of protect the data in the cloud? How do you protect all the guardrails? Everything was back in the cloud. The assumption was that everything is going to be going to an LLM in the cloud, and that's where all the AI magic happens. In fact, actually, we filed a patent almost a couple of years ago, saying that, okay, this is not how it's going to be. There's going to be a transition into the endpoint. A lot of AI interaction is going to transition to the endpoint, whether it's going to be agents, or it's going to be SLMs like small language models or domain language models and things like that would start to kind of move towards the endpoint, because that's more economical for enterprises or anybody to do it also. And so we started with the browser because that's the most common interface for AI, the way it exists there until like 6 months ago, which is on the cloud. But our goal is to start to kind of establish the footprint, to kind of start to provide the same level of control plane across the endpoint. It's not just the browser, but we also are extending into the rest of the endpoint to kind of capture different AI interactions.
So this is the biggest opportunity. I think your investor, Dayakar, must be very happy because the TAM is now suddenly went up from like $100 billion to close to $1 trillion. Now let's switch. So go ahead. Yeah. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about some of your customers, your early design partners. So for that, let me invite Venkatesh Pillai, the popular VP. Please come join us. So VP, thank you for being one of our design partners for SecuFusion. And first, why don't you introduce yourself? I know everybody here knows about you. You're very popular. But why don't you tell about your business and then your opportunity with SecuFusion?
Sure, Srini. Firstly, this is truly a special day, meaningful moment for me, both professionally and personally. I have something to share about Sriram and Raghu. Lot of known face here. I'm Venkatesh Pillai, widely known as a VP or Professor VP. I'm a cyber practitioner practicing for 20 plus years. I'm a serial entrepreneur. My first business was managed security service provider. We named it a Way11, WAY11, Way11. Basically, Way11 is the name of Lord Muruga, how he does the Sura Samharam. So we are digitally how to protect it. Yeah, right. That's what the name of it. That's where I get an opportunity to work with Sriram and Raghu, where we do what you call managed security services. We go to a customer and we sell our services. Very difficult to sell cyber security services for a mid-sized organization, right? We use a 2-3 technique. And there is nothing called a security, right? You cannot say 100% I'm secure, right? All we try to help and try to give a hard time to a threat actor to break into your system. So that's where we go to the customer. There are 2-3 points, right? We talk about their supply chain risk after the SolarWinds attack that happened. Even Aras was talking about the thin client, thick client to browser-based application, right? So that's where we started to, the browser endpoint detection is the very critical component. That's where we started to sell and partner.
I see. So what has been your experience in using SecuFusion, the specific workflows or the use cases that you're trying to solve?
So what happened is Sriram one day called me saying that VP, first of all, before that, Sriram's supposed to be a co-founder with me. I'll tell you a story. Raghu was lucky enough, and I found the reason why he didn't join. He was pick up the career around 2020, I think. Say, Sriram, you remember, right? I had an idea, thought process that I called him one day saying that, hey, Sriram, I want to meet you and talk about my idea, thought process. So I did an architect and put some solutioning, white paper, I took into that, shared it. And then I told him, Sriram, I found a few more people to join with this initiative so that we can go and build the product. And we also talked about Dayakar. Then we can go to Dayakar to have a funding, seed funding, right? That was a real discussion that happened. And I had a concern to share that idea to another party, other person. I asked him, hey, I trust you. Somehow I got a trust on you that I shared my thought. Is it okay to share my thoughts and idea, concept to another person? He said, VP, your idea is your idea, your concept is your idea. People cannot reproduce what you think it. It's okay to do that. That's how we can grow. That was, that's called lead by example. Today I'm building a new cybersecurity platform or OT with 2 other co-founder. I would have not opened very close all my concept and ideas before go and talk to them. That is also, he's also a mentor and helping me. Otherwise, I'm also product guy or GTM guy, and I didn't have an engineering person. Otherwise, we would have been building a product together. What was that?
So the question is your exact use case, what you're
yeah,
talking about, how SecuFusion is helping your business.
Sriram called me saying that I built a product, I wanted to talk to you and discuss about it. Then they deployed a tenant for us. I started to install, configure, test it, and then our team used it. Then another day he called me saying that VP, I want to you as a customer that you started using it, and it was working very well. Only you cannot copy and paste, lot of restriction. Then he came to me saying that, can you take it to your MSSP or managed security or your customer? Then I said, taking to the new product to a customer is not an easy job, right? People the change is the constant, but they don't like it, right? So then I was thinking, okay, I have no restriction that use your product across my environment, my employee, but taking to the customer is a different ball game. Then I said, I have something that I want to talk. Then Raghu and Sriram, we met in a library, I think so, you remember? We were doing a lot of white labeling. So one is, as a customer, I provide a feedback. As an MSSP, there are some challenges that, one of the thing is, how do I integrate with SASE, right? I already started to sell a SASE solution to MSSP, and I had a lot of customer on the MSSP. And again, the SASE product was built by Sriram. There is something called, I don't know how many of you know, BlackBerry had a SASE product called a Silence Gateway, right? And I use a Silence Gateway that I can take your browser to that product, how to do that. There was some issues with, browser was an independent product, and how do we integrate there? And Raghu said, okay, he was thinking, and then it's almost 2-hour workshop that we did. And then after 2 weeks, Raghu called me, VP, that we integrated with your IAM identity, it can work with the SASE, you can go ahead and do that. I have nothing to say, and I was supposed to do the customer, and I think we started the POC with the customer, they are using right now. That's how my journey with Raghu. I didn't believe that Raghu is going to solve this problem within 2 weeks, I think so. And Sriram called me saying that, hey, it's ready, right? Always, we find a reason, when you go to customer, it's not easy. We know, we respect, we have a trust. And if there is something come new, you need to go to take, and we have a little resistant that you don't go immediately say, okay, right? We find a reason to do that, right? And I find a reason saying that this real challenge. Then I did a walkthrough with them that how do I integrate with the SASE? How do I integrate with the IAM identity, right? And then 2 weeks later, he called, worked tirelessly day and night, and they integrated it working flawlessly. That's how my experience with the Raghu.
That's lovely. So now that it's actually a great relationship that, instead of being a co-founder, this customer as a partner, design partner is a much better relationship, right?
Yes.
Now that they delivered on all your needs, particularly you're running a very growing business as an MSSP, they seem to have delivered on your SASE integration IDP. So how many licenses are you buying? Looks like they're working a lot for you.
So this is what happened, right? Being an entrepreneur, I'm stepping away from my MSSP business. I'm handing over to somebody. Even I have a customer here as well. I'm building a new product on OT cybersecurity. I found another person who wanted to lead and run it.
So one more customer.
Yeah, he can sell it. Roughly, I think we rolled out around 200, 250 endpoint. They were using Secure Fusion. Maybe we can easily target like a 2,000 to 5,000 endpoint.
Wow, that's a good one, right? 200 to 2,500.
So I'm already proposed even a few, wherever I deployed SASE solution, Silence. The bad part is one challenge that we have is Silence was occurred by BlackBerry. BlackBerry sold that business to Article. My friend is here. Article decided not to proceed with the SASE. And many people here cyber know SASE, right? SASE means Zscaler or Netscaler. It's a very difficult product. You need a lot of talent, lot of things. Sriram did a 2-3 video in what is CC, how SASE works. Very simple. It was 7 minutes video, 7 minutes. It explained. That product worked very well. We don't need a talent. And I have a junior intern who can manage the SASE solution. That was easy. Whereas I wanted to use Zscaler or Netscope, we need it's a very resource intensive, you need a special skill set to manage or write a policy. So Secure Fusion also have a very, we don't need a expert. One of the things for a startup or MSSP, the cyber security talent is the critical thing. Right now, you need to do a lot of training, a lot of investment that you need to make, a lot of use cases. But this Secure Fusion browser and whatever the SASE he built it, it was a self-explanatory, like you can navigate with the UI with a minimal help or support on time. That's what the beauty about it.
That's an excellent point. In fact, Sriram Raghu, as we were talking about, with a solution like Secure Fusion, we also have an opportunity to disrupt the SASE, which is like our complex controls and so on and so forth. That's a big opportunity. In the interest of time, one thing that I'm very curious about, something that's very close to my heart, particularly the companies that are being built today. So I know you guys are solving the AI intelligence control point problem, visibility and control for intelligence wherever it is. But how are you using AI natively in building your company? So how is AI helping bring efficiencies in terms of your product building or go-to-market? So how AI native you are?
Yeah, I mean, I can simply say that without AI, my company wouldn't have existed. I mean, not just because of the problem space I'm addressing, but how I built it also, right? So, as probably many of you know, many of these products in this area, in this sector, right, are based on this open source project called Chromium, which is considered one of the biggest open source project out there, which is like source code is about 50 gig, and if you want to build a client, it'll take like 2 days just to build it. And we have been working with that for almost 10, 12 years actually in the browser days and all. And I never had less than 100 people to work on that code base because it's very complex, very low-level coding and all that, and it just takes a lot of effort and a lot of expertise on the engineering side and all that stuff. So when I started this company, I knew that there is no way I'm going to build such big teams and all, right? So I was aggressively using AI. I know like a lot of people are using Claude and all that stuff right now, but I figured out a way to kind of start using AI much earlier actually. And whatever was being done by 100 people I could do it with 10 people actually, less than 10 people. So like from day one, we have been extremely capital efficient, and I'm glad to say that AI is the best helper for me from that angle. And in fact, actually, AI is maturing, and and it's actually making it much simpler, much dangerous also in some ways. You easily get carried away to just add a feature by just starting in Cloud Code and all, but I'm actually I'm kind of going back now in a way. You want to have a human in the loop, otherwise it's just getting into uncontrolled areas, and especially being a security company, we don't want to completely depend on AI. But having said that, the same thing that we built and some of our competitors built over the last 2-3 years, and for each of them I had to raise almost $20 to $30 million, and we could do it at 1/10 of that cost actually, and that's completely thanks to AI.
I think this is the biggest thing that I'm learning, particularly the advantage that startups bring. The long security companies, they have like millions of lines of code, legacy code, whereas the new companies start with a fresh thing with the AI tools.
Yep.
Do you see that?
I agree. I mean, exactly, right? So that's, I think we are kind of fortunate to start in the right time, and we could think through what's available, right? So, and we didn't have to kind of build that baggage that kind of makes it difficult to use AI tools. So that way, yeah, we can say that we are perfectly AI native actually, so.
I know both of you have worked together, both of you are very passionate about new innovation. And are there any patents or intellectual property that you built as part of Secure Fusion?
Yes, as I was alluding to it, right? So earlier, so we kind of, been trying to prepare for the endpoint, right? That has become the new frontier for most of these threats coming in, and there hasn't been that much focus as much focus on the cloud infrastructure and how the AI governance happens in the cloud. So we've been kind of, building a lot of IP and a lot of knowledge and domain expertise also in that sense to kind of protect how you can protect endpoint, right? As VP was saying and others were saying, there is no 100% protection anybody can claim for, right? But at least, how do you start at least with the visibility of what user is doing, right? So, I mean, there are so many AI tools available, so many extensions available and all. They're deploying everything and trying everything with a good intention, a lot of users, right? So how do you kind of build that knowledge base and telemetry and all? That's where we have built up a lot of IP in that sense.
That's lovely. Now, I'm super thrilled to invite Dayakar Puskor, the founder and managing director of Dallas Venture Capital, who invested in Secure Fusion. Dayakar, please come.
Oh man, Srini is
So,
the one. Put me in
so
a hot spot here.
Dayakar, I know, I mean, you are such a visionary. And when I moved to Dallas, you know, for any smart founders and entrepreneurs, what is the biggest moat that we have in building a company? Capital. Without capital, you cannot really do anything. It takes a lot of vision and the guts to back these early stage founders and the companies. So Dayakar, I want to hear from you. What's the inspiration, you know, for you to invest in Secufusion?
First, let me start. I really learned a lot today with red team and blue team, right? The only thing is I was asking Sriram, man, are you going into some political stuff here? Okay? I think Sriram said, no, don't worry. All our security guys knows the hacker. You don't know security guys. They know this stuff. So good to see. At least Ismail is from Blue State. So he really represented Blue State. So rest of them all red state. So sorry, Blue. You have 3 against 1 actually. So anyway, joke aside, I think it's interesting, right? As some of you know, I've been here in Dallas for a long time. And, I left my job at Motorola and started a company. I think I was 31, right? And, happened to be right time, right place, I say. I was not the smartest guy, but we were the first one building this mobile messaging product. I wish I had a picture here, but on Palm Pilot, right? So that's the way we started. For me, Raghu was the first engineer, basically. This is the first product guy, basically. That's the way we started the company. These guys, I remember Raghu still used to work at Verizon and would come to the office at 5:30 exactly. So I think it take time maybe for him to, from Verizon to come to our office. That's the way we built our company in the beginning, doing pretty much kind of bringing a lot of what I kind of call a free labor. That's the way I built the company, I remember. I never paid Raghu until we raised the money, actually. So, I'm happy to tell you, we did the what I kind of call a category creation. I think that's what I feel happy to see, basically in the mobile messaging, we did a category creation. And I remember after raising $55 million, when we wanted to do mobile security, one of our investors actually said, why do you want to go into mobile security? You don't need it right now. But again, really, before mobile security became a problem, we actually built a product. We even acquired a company from Russia, actually, for $200,000. And we made that into a multi-million-dollar product, actually, out of it, right? So that's what I think always you had to look for what's coming next. Not maybe 20 years, but at least really what is coming next within a few years. I'm happy to see what, Sriram and Raghu, what they're creating is a new category in the security space. Only thing I can tell you today, I feel like I feel more secure. So many people know the security here in Dallas, right? I never met that many smart people. I feel so dumb in front of all these people today, right? So I think I'm happy to see, in Dallas, we're able to actually invest. This is our third company, as you know, we invested in Amplify, Secufusion and Oregon. These are 3 Dallas companies. Even though we have 40 companies, we have only 3 in Dallas, right? It's been very, very difficult to invest in Dallas because I hate to call most of the engineers, smart engineers, I kind of call 8 to 5 engineers. They go at 5 o'clock, turn on the TV and watch a Hindi movie or Telugu movie or English movie. That's the way most of them got used to it. Because Dallas is a good place to live. Cost of living is low, but I think I see right now people like you moving from the Bay Area, making a big difference. A lot of you don't know Srini, but amazing what he has done, in the Bay Area, built companies, sold companies. And he was telling me that day he wanted to move back to the Bay Area. I said, no way, right? So I think after meeting Raghu, Raghuvir and also Sriram, he got, okay, I'm going to stay back. So I think we want to make sure we have more companies started here. Again, I'm a dumb guy here compared to all these smart people. I think we'll continue to invest in Dallas and all over the world. But I think happy to see, you can see, we've been using one of our friends' place right now. We want to occupy this whole entire place. So more companies really come into the space, more innovation can happen in Dallas. And congrats again. First, I would like to say thank all panelists, really done a great job. Please give a big applause. I think after coming to this office, we saw this many smart people in this place. Yeah. So far, only people like us, can write checks. So thank you again. Thanks, Srini.
So, and let me share my point of view. As Dakar said, I moved from the Bay Area. And when I first met Dakar about a year and a half ago, and for me to learn about DVC and the startup ecosystem that we have, and then I work very closely with Dakar, and he works so hard, like an entrepreneur himself. You know, coming from a founder and entrepreneur, he calls me on a Sunday and this, you know, hey, what types of companies that we need to build? And then he introduced me to Raghu and Sriram. And now I'm also with our own CISO community here, with Ashok and Nats and you know, so many people. I forget some of the people like, you know, Sai and so on and so forth. I am like super excited for the vibrant ecosystem that we have, particularly in the cyber. And today's discussion of the panel discussion, it's actually shaping the course of our industry. And that's what we talk about. Dallas has all the ingredients to become the next cyber and AI hub, shaping the course of this industry, because this dialogue is what is missing. And I see that, you know, Nats and Ashok and the team have worked tirelessly for the last 4 years to build a big ecosystem of the CISO community here, and also not only here, but across all the cities in the US. And also we are actually projecting our voice. And I think, you know, with translating that voice, translating the dialogue into more of partnership with venture capitalists like, you know, the Ayakar, we have an opportunity to build more such companies. And I truly see that Dallas emerging as the next big cyber and AI hub, with more startups, with more capital, and we have to be so grateful for, you know, somebody has to take that leap. And Dakar had that vision to build a platform. So, and all of you, thank you for being here today. So Dakar, now tell me, like, you know, in about 5 or 10 years ago, where do you see DVC and Dallas emerging as?
So today, you know, we are a $160 million AM, you know, venture fund. Our goal is to get within next few years $1 billion AM, right? That means like basically, so we have here from JP Morgan Chase. So we're going to ask them to put next, you know, $100 million. putting Ashok on the spot, but like really that spot, like we always will be, you know, really making sure what we had to do next, right? One thing I can tell you, I was in India, you know, we had our investor meet. I realized most of our investors going to ask me this question, what is next? What's going to happen? So I put it really on the screen itself. This is the question you're going to ask. My answer will be, I don't know. If I know, I would have made $1 billion already right now, right? So I think, but I was able to kind of give whatever we kind of see where the opportunities are. Good thing is we always been very focused, as you know, Srini, the B2B enterprise side. And that also investing picks and shovels, like what we're doing with SecuFusion, right? Not bunch of sexy applications. They may come today, but they may go tomorrow, right? We have done some vertical applications, but mostly our 60% of investments are gone into what we kind of call IT infrastructure, right? Information technology buyer, right? So I think that's what really protected us. And we are seeing that success right now. Some of the companies we invested, recently we just exited a company, we invested in Israel. All the places, you know, we have investment in Israel. So we invest all over the world. We don't have any, you know, restriction geo. But again, as you know, we all love Dallas. You know, we want to invest more in Dallas. So hopefully we'll have more. I know it took a while, I can tell you, Raghuvir, whenever I meet him on the weekends, when are you going to get out? When are you going to get out? When are you going to get out? Raghuvir used to say, oh, let me see my, at least one kid goes to college, right? Yeah. So I think once, you know, he has one, I think his daughter went to college, then he started. So I think we need more of Raghuvir and Srirams in Dallas.
And I think, you know, I see the same sentiment across the board. The other day, you know, Navarasu, Nats, and Ashok, and all of us met. And Dallas, what inspires me the most is, and I'll share some of my experiences. When I was with Netscope and SkyHigh, I had like 2 sales guys covering just this region. And later on, companies like Zscaler, I had like 5 sales guys covering this one region. And later on, when we see companies like Wiz, they had like almost like 10 sales guys. And Dallas is home to some of the marquee companies like the Schneiders of the world and the Bank of America and JPMC. And we also have the biggest pool of the practitioners. We have capital, we have, you know, expertise. Now it's all about bringing that mindset, which is like, hey, we are not just employees, but we are out there to actually shape the course. And Raghu and Sriram has taken that journey, and we want to inspire collectively, but it's not about one person. We all have to back each other. So with that, what we are planning on doing, and today's session was so insightful, the red team and this, and that's just one part of the entire cybersecurity. The AI is actually causing a massive disruption. The future of the reference architecture of enterprise cyber SOC is going to change dramatically, right? And not many questions are answered. But that's what is the opportunity for us, and we have all the expertise. So we plan to, on behalf of DVC and all of us together, we don't want it to be like a just once a kickoff, but rather we actually are committing to investing in creating a monthly thought leadership forum where it's not just about the founder-led, but rather it's more of a collective practitioner-led. And I think all the bright ideas, when I talk to all of you, all are there. Now we need to come together. We have to collaborate with each other, put our best thoughts together, whether it's right or wrong, because nobody knows. It's only when somebody takes the leap forward, we force a dialogue into the community. And I truly believe that not great companies have to come from the Silicon Valley. The more ideas and more companies can come from here, we're all deeply committed. I know Dayakar is deeply committed, and with all of us together, we can actually make Dallas be the next AI and cyber hub. And that's our commitment, and it's starting to happen every month. And I know there's a lot of discussions happening, and we're going to come together and we're going to make this happen. So with that, thank you all for coming here.
She didn't mention we have enough alcohol and really.
Oh, yeah. The
Nobody
best
had
part,
touched
isn't it?
so far. I want to make sure like everything is done here.
I think everybody is already intoxicated with the red team and the blue team, right? Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The big dude.
I want to take a 30-second why Secure Fusion, right? We are like, there are 3 keyboard commanders, Control-C, Control-V, Alt-Tab, right? And everybody open a multiple browser window, right? You have a ChatGPT, Gemini, Gemini AI, and your email, personal email. And your CRM, other application. We copy one panel to paste it, right? And recently, we all knew a lot of news talk about CISA director copied some sensitive information, then pasted in ChatGPT, right? It was a big issue in the news, right? In the interim cyber infrastructure security director. And that Secure Fusion will protect it. That's why we need a Secure Fusion, because we are lazy to Control-C, Control-V, and Alt-Tab, paste it. And not knowingly doing it. We all do unknowingly. So the answer is Secure Fusion. That's how I sell my customer and explain and convince the customer, hey, we are going to integrate part of the Secure Fusion browser is going to be part of our SASE solution.
So with that, Raghu and Sriram, I would love for you to close the session.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. It's a big day for us. We've been working on it for a couple of years, but it's like finally we see this coming to light, and I really want to thank all of you for being here and looking for your support going forward. But really appreciate it. And we have the food, we ordered everything. Can you just make sure that you have food before you head out, and looking forward to interact with you, everybody. Sorry, yours. So, you've seen the panel, right? Red and blue. And, generally, like in the security industry, you have red and blue, and when you combine them, you become purple. So, it's a kind of a marquee color in a way for most of the security industry. So that's why we pick purple. So.
Well, I also want to thank from the bottom of my heart for all of you for having come here to help support the launch of Secure Fusion. We hope that it's going to be a category-defining, unified AI detection and response, unified AIDR product. And I want to thank Dayakar and Dallas Venture Capital for the trust that they have put in us. We will certainly hold up ourselves for that, Dayakar. And I want to really, really thank Srini for helping introduce Secure Fusion to the world. So we are live, and please do email us. There is a contact form. There's a lot of good demo videos that folks who are here in this venue are able to see it through the loop video that we are showing here. But we'll be happy to do a one-on-one session with anyone who would want to bring in unified AI, DR into your enterprise. If you're MSSP, we are ready for MSSPs to be onboarded into our platform, and you can light up any number of like enterprise customers. There are going to be some exciting promotions for the MSPs and MSSPs too, as well as like enterprises. I want to also like thank the 7 enterprise design partners and the 3 MSP design partners. If not for them, we would not be where we are today, including VP. VP was technically our first customer. He was the first person to whom like we briefed the SecuFusion vision. So we are deeply like grateful to VP for his ongoing support, and the icing is the 2,500 endpoints that VP is going to buy. So on that high note, and that is huge, VP. So on that high note, and as Raghu said, there is food, there is drinks. Please enjoy.
One small fun trivia. So when Raghu and Sriram first came to my house, to talk about SecuFusion and all that stuff, they knew what my strength or weakness. And Sriram said, how about Srini, let's do some yoga before, right? So because they know that they will get my attention. So we basically made me teach some Surya Namaskar and all that stuff. Like, so what I can share from you is like, security gets done right if you do some yoga. So combine security with yoga. All of you, please come join us for some yoga. But before that, there is some boga, nice food. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.